views on that?
So the question was about vaccinations, and I can only speak from my own experience. And my own experience is that I've worked in many areas where some of the illnesses were that the vaccines are for. I was on a reservation where whooping cough was prevalent, and I saw babies dying of it. You know, I've worked in places where there still are those diseases that we nowadays, we haven't had them around so long, we've kind of forgotten how bad they were. And so vaccinations have really allowed us to live together in huge communities without killing us all off. But again, there have been some bad things in vaccinations as well, and some of them have developed too quickly. And one of the problems now is they're all shoved into one jab, as you guys say in the Southern Hemisphere, injection, as we say in the Northern Hemisphere. And so I think that's also created some of the problem, is there's been so many. I can tell you my own personal experience. I was a resident in a hospital and pediatric ward when the Haemophilus influenza vaccine came out. And before it came out, the number of kids in the intensive care unit with meningitis was huge. After it came out, there were no kids in the intensive care unit with meningitis. So I saw it firsthand how it really can help. But again, we don't want to go overboard and too many. I mean, I personally don't feel like the vaccine for chickenpox is really that necessary, because chickenpox isn't that deadly of a disease. So again, we sometimes go way overboard. And so something's good, so now way more is good. But again, vaccines have really helped us and really created, you know, gotten rid of some of the really deadly diseases. Polio, I mean, my uncle had polio, and my mom talks about what it was like to grow up with, you know, her brother having polio, and you know, how devastating and awful that was. And now polio has been pretty much eradicated in the world, but yet there's still pockets of it. So we can't stop giving polio vaccine, because if we stop, then it can spread again. Smallpox has been eradicated, so we don't have to have smallpox vaccines anymore, which is great, you know, yay! But so vaccines are not bad. Again, be discerning, you know, use your own knowing. Sometimes maybe delay the vaccines a little bit if you feel like, you know, the baby's struggling or not really ready to receive that. When you give a vaccine, don't give it in fear, give it in love, you know. So if you're going in and, oh, I really don't want to do this for my baby, but that's what they're telling me to do, what are you doing? You're infusing fear into the baby and fear into the vaccine. So if you go in where, you know, you imbibe the vaccine with love and light, you know, you talk to the baby and say, you know, this is for your good, use it for your good, you know, and pass what isn't good for you out. Again, what a different way to give a vaccine. But if we do it in fear and you know, even expecting something bad's going to happen, then what are we going to get? Something bad. So do it in love. You know, I had to get a measles, mumps, rubella when I was working in New Zealand, because we had a measles outbreak. And I just did. I said, okay, well, love and light, what my body needs, let it take in. What it doesn't need, please pass through. And I had no reaction. It was great. Versus, oh, I don't want this vaccine. Oh, you know, then what are you going to get? You're going to get sick. So, you know, but use your discernment. And also, there's a really great movie out, and I'm trying to bring it over here, but it was done in the States, and it was all the views. It had everybody views in one movie. And the parents who had the kids who had reactions, and the parents who had kids who died from the diseases, and all the doctors and all the specialists. Every view was in the movie, and it's a great movie, and I am trying to get it over here to really, to get the information, the correct information. I can say in my years as a doctor, I've been a doctor for over 25 years, I've not had one case of immunization reaction, other than just a localized rash or, you know, a sore arm. Again, use discernment, you know, empower yourself, empower your child, empower your baby to be able to handle it. And use love. You know, if you imbibe anything with love, it can only give you more love. If you imbibe it with fear, it'll give you more fear. So, it's choiceless choice, right? So again, when you're looking at vaccines, remember that vaccines at times were made with not the best ingredients. There was mercury in vaccines for a while, and that was causing reactions. That's now been taken out. There are also certain antibiotics put in vaccines which some people reacted to, and that's now been taken out. So a lot of the things that were causing the trouble in vaccines have now been taken out and have been eliminated from the vaccines to make them much safer. Remember that when you're getting a vaccine, it's exposing you to that virus or whatever it is, so that your body builds an immunity up to that, so that when you then are exposed to that illness, and one of the things today is now, because we've got kids in daycare, little bubs in daycare, moms are having to go back to work. Kids are getting exposed to these viruses and illnesses much, much, much younger, where they wouldn't have, when we kept them home until they went off to kindergarten. And it used to be you went off to, your first years of school is when you got, we always told moms, your kid's going to get 5 to 7 illnesses in their first year in school. Expect it. It's normal because they're getting exposed to all these new viruses and their body needs to build up that immunity. Now we're changing that from when they're 5 years old to when they're 5 months old, or sometimes even 3 months old. These kids are getting put in daycare because the mothers have no choice. They have to go back to work to support their family. So the vaccines are giving them a dose of that illness in small amounts so that they can build up immunity to that illness. If they don't build up that immunity when they actually get the illness, they could get much sicker. Kids who get a reaction to, or even adults who get a reaction to an immunization, if they hadn't gotten the immunization and later on had gotten the illness, they probably would have died from the illness. Whereas the vaccine maybe gave them a severe reaction, but if they hadn't had the vaccine when they actually got the illness itself, they would have died. So it's actually prevented them from dying from that illness. So even though we think, oh, it was a reaction, it was really bad, well, a reaction isn't as bad as dying from the illness when they actually got exposed. And now that we're exposing kids so much sooner to illnesses, they need that immunity built up. You're putting into daycare and you've got all these kids with runny noses, and the daycare attendants don't have time to wash their hands all the time, and the kids are sharing all their toys, and they're going to get exposed to a lot more. So helping their immune system, really immunizations are about helping our immune system fight the illnesses that are out there that in the old days, even on our parents' days, were killing people. And even in this day and age, whooping cough is still killing people. Diphtheria, polio, those illnesses are still killing people. And we can be very complacent about it because we haven't seen it. And I've actually been lucky enough, or unlucky enough, I don't know what it is, but to work in areas where, I saw bubonic plague when I was a med student, and doesn't exist anymore, but I actually was in a place where it still existed, which was in the US, of all places. But there are, pockets of these diseases that still do exist, and if we're not immunizing, then we're allowing those diseases to start to spread again. And some of the diseases that were almost eradicated, unfortunately the AIDS epidemic has allowed those things to start coming back because, basically HIV virus decreases the immunity and really assaults the immune system of that person. So then any other virus that comes in, they're very susceptible to it. So some of the things that were almost eradicated have now come back. Tuberculosis is one of them. Tuberculosis was almost unheard of except in very remote places, and now it's come back. Measles has come back. Whooping cough or pertussis has come back. And part of the reason those things have come back, not only the HIV, but because we have gotten complacent and we have stopped immunizing, which then allows them to get more rampant again. And a lot of people have, because they were never exposed to those diseases in their lifetime, they think, oh, the immunization isn't so important and it's actually going to hurt my child and give them autism, which there's never been any proven case of immunization giving autism. So then they choose not to immunize, and then so that allows the disease to come back when we actually almost had it eradicated. The standard immunizations that have been given over years and years and years are safe. They've been used for long periods of time. The newer ones, again, used discernment. when I was in New Zealand, they brought one out for, we have a very particular strain of meningitis in New Zealand, and they started a vaccine for it because New Zealand was was one of the few countries that actually had it. And it came out and then it went away, and we never really understood what happened. But again, some things get pushed through and pushed through too quickly. So use discernment. But in general, most of the childhood vaccinations are well worth giving to your child. Yes, if you're going to choose not to immunize your child, then please, please, please use homeopathic immunizations. I mean, see Kim, and he'll get them for you and get you a child, because doing nothing is not really great. So if you're going to choose not to immunize your child, at least use an alternative. And Kim can really help you with that. And some of my patients that have chosen not to, I refer them, I say, well, you at least need to be on this, and refer them to Kim, and he works with them and gets them on that. So absolutely, if you're going to choose not to use immunizations, and it's a personal choice, do something at least. I mean, you can't wrap your kid in a bubble, and get them through life. They're not going to experience life. We come down here to experience life, and we have to get out there and get muddy and get dirty, and kids have to get exposed to germs to build up a good immunity and get strong and learn. So, if we wrap our kids in cotton wool, they're not going to get those experiences and get that learning. So they need to do it.